suppressed rifle, less recoil, less noise, in the blind, and so he took it to Parks and Wildlife and got it passed, or got the rule change. That's all it took, a rule change. And we can hunt game animals in Texas with a suppressor, legally. Texas currently has 140,000. They're fully registered. They have to be, or you're a potential felon. So there are 140,000, more than twice any other state. It's a big market, and it's nothing more than this long can that screws on threads on the end of your rifle, really any firearm. So we were going to change. We wanted to somehow require CLEOs, Chief Law Enforcement Officers, to sign this. I could get a CLEO signature in Travis County, you know where that is, but I couldn't get one in Williamson County. I could get it in a county where a sheriff had always done it, the sheriff had resigned, his deputy went, well, I don't think anybody needs one of those things. So it was crazy. Now this is going to blow your mind. Executive actions, not executive orders, executive actions, which don't carry the same weight, but scare us half to death, came out not long ago, and President Obama was going to keep dangerous people from getting these dangerous things. And so he's requiring that anyone in a gun trust or a private corporation where you could actually, people belonging to that, not all of them had to have a background check. Now, this is really stupid, but if you're a felon, you can't be legal to hold a machine gun. So you don't need to worry about that. But what came out of that executive action, besides the fact that everybody now has to go get a background check? He did away with the CLEO paragraph. And so now, if you want a suppressor, you don't have to go hope that your sheriff, your police chief, who know your ex-wife, will sign off on that or not. He doesn't have to sign anything. He does get a notification, but that's it. He doesn't even have to keep it. He can shred it. So we worked on campus, CLEO, clarifying the law for those devices I was telling you about. A sales tax holiday for guns and ammo. Didn't get that one. We worked on a constitutional amendment, the right to hunt and fish. That takes 2/3 in both chambers and goes on the public ballot the next November. That was scary to me. Can you imagine Texas losing a constitutional amendment to protect hunting and fishing by traditional method? Ooh, ooh. But this was the time to get it, was then. Then there was a bill that, well, we call it the sign bill. We call shorthand out of everything. Took a couple of sessions. Taxpayer-owned property cannot post 30-06 and 30-07 signs, except for the locations listed in statute. And that's kind of redundant, but they can do that. So your appraisal office, your library, your stupid zoo, but I don't know if we'll ever get that. The Houston Zoo at the moment is an amusement park because they've got that train through it. But anyway, what happens is anyone can go take a picture of a sign that's on publicly owned property and send a letter, some of you may have gotten them, to the county attorney, to whoever has control of that property, ask for an explanation on why the sign is posted there. If they don't get an answer, the next step is the Attorney General. And they're staying pretty busy. They are. So that bill took 2 sessions, and the House member who had that bill is a Democrat from the Valley. When I started in 1998, we had a very large Democratic majority. I grew up in Texas. I remember LBJ Democrats versus Kennedy Democrats. We're down to 2 in the House. 2 conservative Democrats. That's the way it goes. They've either lost or flipped. So I went 2 sessions with Democrats, with Pete Laney. Then I went, next my speaker was Craddock, and now my speaker is Joe Strauss. Once the voters send their people to Austin, I shut up and go to work with whomever you all send. And I don't make any excuses. I don't do toll roads. I don't do anything but gun rights. And that's all I report to my membership. That's it. I don't dabble in other people's business. I'm trying to give you, and I score everybody. If you don't return my questionnaire, you get a question mark. And I don't do judges, because they won't fill out my questionnaire. And there's too many district judges, I couldn't begin to follow up. I have messed with Harris County District Attorney, that was kind of fun. She owned machine guns, which was also kind of fun, but that was a one-shotter. So, let me give you a tiny history, if I've got time. How are we doing? We okay?
Yeah.
What happened? Why don't we have open carry without a license of a handgun? Was Texas asleep when that happened? No, it didn't much exist. Here's what happened. 1871. That was when handguns ended up in the prohibited weapon list. 1871. Galveston had 12,000 people. San Antonio was the next biggest city, and the rest of them were just a stagecoach stop. And the Colt Walker revolver that took metallic ammunition had just been invented. Dangerous firearms. Texas was full of Indians that kind of had made it to Oklahoma, deserters from both armies. It was a mess. And handguns are listed in Penal Code 4602 to this day as a prohibited weapon, along with illegal knives and clubs. I think they've taken brass knuckles off. Harold Dutton, an F-rated House member, got switchblades taken off. I have a theory on that, and I won't tell you. Harold Dutton in the House, Chewy Hinojosa in the Senate. Their people like knives better than guns. Handguns are a prohibited weapon. Okay, we got 2 categories. Handguns are here. UCW, unlawful carry of a weapon. That's the charge, a UCW, unlawful carry of a weapon. On the other side, you got those long guns. 0 in statute. Those are called firearms. Handguns, firearms. There's nothing else. Handguns, firearms. Firearms, there's preemption. Preemption means that cities and counties can only do what regulating the legislature and the state constitution will allow them to do. And by the way, cities can regulate firearms, which is what? At political events, at parades. We just had one not too long ago. It wasn't a very nice parade. And in parks. Those are the 3 locations. They're in statute. Local Government Code 229.001. It's there. Cities can regulate firearms, long guns. Cities cannot regulate handguns because the only legal handguns are carried by whom? Licensees. And we have another set of law over here. There's no legal carrying of an unlicensed handgun. And don't ask me about your car because that's an extension of your home. That took 100 years to do too. It used to be traveling. And that traveling law was written when it was horseback. Duh. So that's what's going on. That's what happened to Texas. Only 5 states have that prohibition in statute. 5. It's a prohibition in statute. Most states are silent. Complete. They just don't say it's against the law. Therefore, it must be legal. God, I wish we'd be there. I would just go with my eraser. That's all you have to do. Just erase handguns out of 4602. And we'd be real close. Then it would flip over to firearms, see? Or you'd have that option. Vermont-style carry. Makes me want to hurt somebody. First of all, Vermont's this tiny little cold state with 700,000 people, and all firearms, including handguns, are protected in their state constitution. That doesn't mean you can walk around with one. They don't have preemption. So if I've got something, but I can't take it anywhere, I haven't got anything. In 1995, the first change finally happened with handguns. Tried it in 93. Ann Richards says, don't do it. To her Democratic majority, don't do it. I'll veto it. So they created legislation that would put it on a public ballot. And I'll be darned. The lady vetoed it. And it cost her a job. George W. came along 2 years later and said to the legislature, if you get it to my desk, I will sign it. I won't waste your time. And the bill carried by Jerry Patterson in the Senate and Ron Wilson and others in the House passed. And that created a license. Well, why do you want a license, Alice? Because I want to leave the state occasionally. Thanks to Greg Abbott, who is by now the Attorney General, he accepted, and this took a change in law, he accepted the task of reciprocity. It was originally assigned to DPS. You don't want your law enforcement negotiating reciprocity agreements. They do it with a mirror. It's not exactly like hers. It's kind of close, but no, it's not. And we, after 5 years of having a license, we had about 5 states we could go to. I'm not sure how you would get to them. Now we have over 30, because the criteria for a reciprocity agreement with Texas is the background check. That's the criteria in statute. And we have 1 million licensees who occasionally wanted to take off their jacket in a hot restaurant, or wanted to take off their jacket to hang it in the back seat of their car, or wanted to, and that was what licensed open carry did. There's no longer an offense for exposing or partially exposing your handgun contained in a belt or shoulder holster. I can't go, you want to see my pretty gun? It's got to be in the holster. Then I can show you my pretty gun. And it is. Has rows on the grip and rows on the receiver and plus P ammunition. So that's the change. And we created an additional sign that's in Penal Code 30-7, where a business could post 30-7 and say, we like you guys, we've got a 20-year history with licensees, but we don't want to see them. That's what the 30-7 signs for. Okay, that brings you up. Any questions on the history of handguns and firearms? Does that make kind of sense of how we got there? Two categories of guns. Yes, sir?
Where do shotguns fit in?
Long guns. Don't. If you saw it off, you're in trouble with the feds. Okay? Long guns. Rifles and shotguns in 1871, everybody had one. They were ranching tools. They were hunting tools. They were self-defense. By the way, self-defense was further than it is now. We're kind of bunched up together. So they didn't touch that. They touched the handgun that nobody had. They weren't common. There was no academy down the street. And they had this newfangled metallic cartridge ammunition. And it stayed that way. And it is that way. Unless you have a license. You don't need a license. You can't get a license for a long gun. And the bubba rack's still legal. So is walking up the middle of the street, as you folks know all too well. Some a little more flamboyantly than others. But that's all part of it. It really is. So any other questions about those two categories of guns? Just remember, if you got your eraser out and you erased handguns from Penal Code 4602, you have really fixed. Someone, I turned down an interview with Rolling Stones this week. He was a nice guy. He sounded like a lovely kid, offered to buy me a drink or a meal. He just wanted to get things right. I'm here to tell you, I've had the last 4 years of abuse like I've never had in my entire life. They're all lying dogs. Lying dogs. Oh my God. I did an interview, and a different one, a couple of weeks ago, and the Texas Public Radio person, nice guy, they're all nice guys, couldn't get me to say what he wanted me to say. They love it where they can create open carry like it's a separate group, and then and we're at war with each other. Da, da, da. Well, and this was even worse. He was trying to get me to promise him constitutional carry, which is on the Republican platform, number 264, out of maybe 66, out of 266. Anyway, he wanted me to say that that was going to be my number one issue. I count votes. For that to be the number one issue, some things have to change. And I'm not going to waste a session. I got stuff here to do. I just look up every once in a while and go, oh, that'll work. So he made something up. He said TCRA supports changing the Texas Constitution for constitutional carry. And I went, what? If one of the staff members said that, tell me who so I can go strangle her. I just told you what a constitutional amendment, the right to hunt and fish, took. Changing the state constitution would take that too. 2/3 in each chamber and a popular vote. You think that would pass today as a popular ballot? No way, Jose. NRA has 300,000 members in the state. 300,000 members. We've got 27 million Texans, well, people. Some of them are Texans. And they're increasing 1,100 a day. And they're not coming from red states. And 2 sessions back, we started seeing this group called Everytown USA, Moms Against, I call them the MDAs, Moms Demand Action, MDAs. They look like they took a day off from yoga. They're all 30-something, and you have to understand, I'm 70, I went through Vietnam, I know what a hippie looks like. Kind of was one. Didn't look like yoga though, but they're kind of yoga-ish. And they came in the Capitol with an armed guard. They were scared of us. Scared. Of course, their kids were crawling all over my briefcase. Scared of us. So, but Bloomberg is funding them. They have a lobbyist, they have an armed guard, they have matching t-shirts, and they're one of their first goals, because these are smart people, and by the way, Bloomberg has a business model for them. They're like franchise, and they're in every state. Every single state. And you need to be very, very afraid. They're very smart and very dedicated. And they're the perfect age to be a zealot. Then we have another group called Texas Gun Sales. Oh my God. And she's pro-Second Amendment. And all she cares about is safety. And I don't think she sleeps at night. She's everywhere. And if you talk to her very long, I mean at all, and I can't help but look at these guys when I'm saying, when you talk to her very long, she goes to the next office and says, I'm working with Governor Abbott. I'm working with Alice Tripp. I'm working with, I plan to be busy. She wanted me to be a part of the Suicide Prevention Coalition. Can you see that doing my cause any good? I can't. So, and first time I met her, she explained to me, after talking for a long time, you know that 74% of NRA members support background checks at gun shows. Madam, 100% of my members would kick my aging butt. She is very good with picking out statistics. She was in the Fort Worth Star-Telegram in an op-ed about gun safety for children, and the children she was talking about were 16 and 17 years old. See? We can just save one child. We're back to that. So that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with a state that's turning blue. We're dealing with a state that's growing immensely. We're dealing with new people that are urbanizing. Harris County has 4.5 million people. More than the state of New Mexico and Montana together. And then we have Presidio, which still has, 17,000, 18,000 maybe in the whole county. It's the size of a European country. So we're going to have to be vigilant. We're going to have to work. We're going to have to not tear each other apart, certainly not publicly. And we're going to have to go as far as we can go and never, ever, ever, I've never lost an issue. Campus carry took 4 sessions, 8 years, 10 committee hearings. We didn't whip it out. And it started after Virginia Tech. That's what started it, and it was brought to the NRA lobbyist. We will not give up on any of this stuff, including constitutional carry. Don't shoot the messenger, though. Any questions?
What are your dues for the NRA?
They're online too, but annual dues are $35 a year. I recommend, oh, and I lied, I said a different price. I recommend a 3-year membership because then you go through 1 or 2 legislative sessions and you don't have to think about it again. So we need you. I need to know, I first of all want this form back, at least your email address, and you can leave them on the table. The other little pamphlet is the highlights of bills that we've passed. Everything from licensed open carrying in your car, employer parking lot, on and on. So, any other questions? Yes, sir.
I've been a TCRA member since high school and a patron level now. I've never heard a word from you guys. I see you at gun shows.
How would you like to hear from us, sir?
Why don't you? Because you have access to CHL.
Nobody has access to CHL, sir.
I heard they did.
No, they don't. I fixed that. Confidentiality. The newspapers will list everybody in the capital. When
I can understand the NRA not giving you their payment.
No, here's what they do. When you got dues that are $35 a year, you don't do mass mailings into. I've been at every single Republican convention since I've been doing this. By the way, I go to every single Democratic convention. I was at the last one. I'm there to annoy them mostly. It's kind of amusing. But I'm in every single Republican convention. Everyone. NRA's not there. They go to national stuff. So, have you never heard of us?
Yeah, I see you at gun shows and stuff.
Have you ever gone up and asked anybody about what we do?
Very quickly.
There you go.
Out there to see guns.
There you go. I didn't get the right venue, but you are going to be a life member by the end of the night, I suppose. We have a senior life member, and then you won't have to worry about it ever again. Think of all the time you've saved.
I wrote them a big check. They ought to
No.
give you a discount though.
Well, they give you a discount. You're a senior.
I've been.
Honey, I'm 70. I spot them. I spot them. So, what else, sir?
I just, on the way to national convention, I took a 10-state tour, downloaded every single signed by Craig Abbott reciprocal arrangement until I got to the only 2 states. One I avoided completely was Illinois, and the other one was Wisconsin, which was the second to the last. And I don't know if there's a reason why Paxton hasn't done it, or do you know why we don't have any reciprocal, or we didn't even do a unilateral for them, for us?
Wisconsin was really the quick. Don't even ask about Illinois.
No,
That's like Chicago and the rest of the world. Reciprocal agreements require the law to mesh. And every state calls everything in their law different by different terminology. One of the reasons we had some problems, we had problems with Nevada and reciprocity. How can we do that? Because Texas and Susanna Huff passed this bill. We issue a handgun license to under 21-year-old active and retired military. There's never been more than about, altogether, under 21, 411 at one time. But the state of Nevada and Wisconsin woke up to the fact that their statute prohibits anyone from having a license under 21. So someone finally said, well, why don't you just, ignore I mean, if you're under 21, you can't go to Nevada. There's a lot of things you can't do in Nevada if you're not 21. Gambling comes to mind, but there's a lot of things you can't do in Nevada if you're under 21, including carry a handgun with a Texas license or any license. But that's what negotiating a reciprocal agreement, we had to make some tweaks on our end. And when you're working with NRA where they have a lobbyist in every state, I can pick up a phone and say, how come, why? Can you fix it? What do we have to do to fix it? But sometimes the language just, you're dealing with, the unilateral means we like you and they're not sure about us. What else? Yes, sir.
Alice, I know you're familiar with the calls by our state convention for constitutional carry. And you had mentioned earlier, in the process of your job, you have to deal with the possible. Could you talk to us about how we might be able to move the ball?
The ball forward?
Yeah, so that because I think that, in our state convention, we're going to be coming back and revisiting this every time until we get what we think we want.
I can tell you how we got licensed open carry. And then you can draw whatever conclusions from that. And a lot of you all of you all are in some process-oriented part of this. You're a judge, you're a district attorney, you're a precinct, you've got a process, you've got responsibilities. We elect legislators, freshmen, and we send them off, and we tell them, do not hire these guys who know what things are. We don't want you tainted. You bring people from a home. And don't talk to any lobbyists, they're all evil. And so the freshman sits on E2, which is the bottom of the basement in the darkest corner, and says, wonder what all those funny bills are for. And then someone takes the freshman a priority bill, because he's their guy. I remember Representative Quintanilla from El Paso's first session. The bill he passed was to make the sopapilla the state pastry of Texas. I'm serious as a heart attack. Freshmen are freshmen. You shop a bill. You find, would you go to a first-year heart surgeon? Huh? I don't think so. So find the right bill author, the right bill sponsor. You look at who served on what committee last time. You don't send a gun bill to a committee that deals with insurance. If it's the chairman of the insurance company, probably not the right person. Unless that person says, I'm going to go to the speaker and I'm going to ask to be the chairman of Homeland Security and Public Safety, and I've been in this building long enough. I have seniority, I can get it. So you work the process. You don't use your shotgun approach. You don't use that's where a lot of the well-intended grassroots people got into trouble. And they made some demands and they ticked off some Democrats. And it was funny, but it was very harmful. Made very bad for us. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I guess...
I had to say it without
no,
telling
well,
you.
what you're doing, you're kind of giving advice to those of us that are what we might call citizen lobbyists.
We are.
The grassroots types that do go to legislative session. We sign up, we speak on bills, and for and against, and we do that. And I think in a sense, what you're probably telling us here is we need to do better at strategy and tactics through the
Well,
process.
just
but the
somebody,
question-
just getting someone to file your bill,
Yeah.
because once that happens, you may not get your baby back.
Right.
I mean, it's hard where you go, we're now taking our baby over here.
Right.
Here's how licensed open carry happened. We found a good bill author who was recommended. That bill author, Larry Phillips from Sherman, was picked, no accident, to be the chairman of Homeland Security and Public Safety. That was no accident. And that bill, for the first time, George Lavender had filed it twice. First time he couldn't get a hearing, second time he couldn't get a vote. And it was a good committee. It had a bad chairman. And it wasn't luck. So that's what it takes.